Chapter 18. Release through Renunciation. Part 1. This chapter is the pinnacle. Dnyaneshwari Maharaj says. This 18th chapter is like the pinnacle of a temple. Once one sees it from a distance, then he knows that the goal is near, and it gives a feeling that one has actually met the deity inside. Similarly, the 18th chapter brings the whole essence of the Gita in view. 18:31-32. This 18th chapter reviews the entire Gita from beginning to end. 18:43. Arjuna thinks renunciation is better than action at the end of the 17th chapter. Sri Krishna told Arjuna that actions done without any faith in Om Tat Sat, the name of the Brahman, are evil and wrong. Hearing this, Arjuna thought, Sri Krishna is faulting persons involved in the ritualistic path. But the individual doer of actions is really blinded by ignorance, and basically does not understand the nature of God. Then how should he know anything about Om Tat Sat, the name of the Brahman? Besides, as long as Raja and Tama have not gone from within him, his faith also would remain impure. Then, how would he have faith in the name of the Brahman? 18:60-64. These karmas actions are very mischievous. Terrible calamities like birth and death are incorporated in them. If by good fortune the actions are successfully completed, then the doer acquires the worthiness for attaining knowledge, otherwise the same action would cause his downfall. Many impediments are faced by the time an action is completed. Then when would a follower of the path of action get his turn to be liberated? Therefore, it is better to break away from this trap of the path of actions, to give up all actions and adopt the path of renunciation, sannyas, which has no shortcomings. Renunciation and abandonment are two things in relation to which one does not hear about being affected by the karmas, and with the help of which self-realization can be attained. With their help, the relation with the material world breaks. Therefore, it would be better to ask Sri Krishna to explain the nature of renunciation and abandonment. 18:66-72. This 18th chapter contains the reply given by Sri Krishna to Arjuna's question on this subject. 18:74. Tartar. Arjuna asked, Sri Krishna, sannyas, renunciation, and abandonment seem to have the same meaning. Please explain to me if there is any difference between the two. 18:87-89. Abandonment and renunciation. Sri Krishna said, the two words are really different, but they appear to you as having the same meaning, which I agree is also correct in a way. It is true that both words have the meaning which signifies abandonment, but the reason why their meanings are different is that if all ritualistic actions are abandoned, then it is called sannyas. But if only the fruits thereof are abandoned, then it is called abandonment. Now I shall explain to you about actions, the fruits of which are to be abandoned, and about actions which are to be abandoned altogether. 18:90-93. The routine actions take place naturally, but actions with desire behind them do not take place without the will. Actions with desire of fruits behind them, such as horse sacrifice, yajna, digging wells, gardens, etc., gifting away lands, establishing new towns, performing rituals with a lot of formality, etc., are rooted in personal desire, and it binds the doer to the enjoyment of the fruits thereof. 18:97-100. Arjuna. Once you acquire a body, you cannot say no to the birth and death phenomena. 18:100. Similarly, one cannot avoid enjoying or suffering the fruits of one's actions. Just as one cannot avoid repaying a loan, once a desire-based action is done, the fruits thereof remain in waiting to make you enjoy or suffer for them. 18:103. Even if a desire-based action occurs inadvertently, 18:104, it has the power to make you enjoy or suffer the fruits. Therefore, a seeker should be careful not to do such actions even in fun. If performed, and they should be abandoned like poison. This abandonment of desire-based actions is called sannyas, or renunciation. Abandonment of desire-based actions means complete destruction of passions in one's mind. 106 to 109. Routine and incidental actions, the ritualistic actions which one has to perform, such as at the time of an eclipse, or when a guest comes, are called incidental, nimitic actions. 111. These are actually part of the routine duties, but performed whenever an occasion arises, and then it gets termed as incidental. What one does in the morning, afternoon, and evening gear, the daily routine actions, nitya karma. 114 to 115 to 1. This performance of routine actions is, like the fragrance within sandalwood, intrinsically virtuous and cannot be avoided. 117. Abandonment. Some people consider these routine and incidental actions as useless because they must be done routinely anyway. But just as food gives satisfaction to the taste buds and removes hunger, similarly these routine and incidental actions give all-round results. 119 to 120. Performance of these routine and incidental actions removes the blemishes from one's mind, raises one's worth, and because of it one reaches a good state in the afterworld. But even though one gains such fruits of the routine and incidental actions, one should abandon those fruits. 122 to 123. Thus, while one should attentively perform the routine and incidental duties, keeping oneself within the prescribed bounds, the fruits thereof should be abandoned totally. This abandoning of the fruits of actions is called abandonment. Thus I have explained to you abandonment and sannyas. Renunciation. 125 to 126. Renunciation. When renunciation occurs, the actions done with desire do not bother. Prohibited actions are not done because they are prohibited, and the routine and incidental actions are automatically nullified because of the abandoning of their fruits. Trick of abandonment. Once all account of all the actions is nullified, then knowledge of the self comes searching for you. By this trick, those who abandon the fruits of the routine and incidental actions and renounce the actions with desire acquire the knowledge of the self. 127 to 130. But those who do not adopt this trick but try to practice abandonment by guesswork do not at all achieve abandonment, but get into more complications. 130 and 31. The actions which are not fit to be abandoned should not be abandoned, while those which should be abandoned should not be coveted. If one misses the trick of abandonment, then that abandonment becomes a burden. But a truly detached person does not even think about the prohibited actions. 133 to 134. People who are not able to free themselves of the desire of fruits of their actions charge that all actions are binding. Just as a person who is slave to the taste buds eats all sorts of food and blames it if he cannot digest it, similarly, persons incapable of abandoning the fruits but having desire for them blame the actions themselves and decide that they should be abandoned. Some others say that rituals like yajna, etc., must be performed because there is no other means of purifying the mind. If one has to succeed in purifying the mind quickly, then there should not be indolence in performing actions capable of doing so. 135 to 139. Actions should not be abandoned saying that they are arduous. Many people turn their mind to ritualistic actions with such thoughts. Thus, abandonment has become a debatable topic. Now I shall explain to you properly the real nature of abandonment and remove any differences in thinking regarding it. 142 to 144. 3 types of abandonment. Abandonment may be considered as of 3 types. I shall now explain to you which these 3 types are. But even if I explain to you the 3 types of abandonment, understand that its essence is what I have told you just now. Listen to me, who is all-knowing, for my definite opinion as to what truth is. The seeker who is ever alert towards liberation from the bindings of this world should follow only this. 145 to 148. Like a traveler who should not stop taking forward steps, one should not abandon the essential actions, namely yajna, charity, and tapas. 149. Ta. As long as one is not sure about self-realization, one should not be nonchalant about these rituals. On the other hand, one should observe them with more attention according to one's entitlement. Performing more rituals is helpful for non-action. 152 to 154. Stay. When actions, rituals are performed quickly and according to the prescribed rules, then the attributes Raja and Tama are destroyed completely. 156. Action performed with faith destroys Raja and Tama, and brings out the importance of the purity of the Sattva attribute. To gain the purity of the Sattva attribute, righteous actions are like places of pilgrimage. The places of pilgrimage remove the external dirt, while righteous deeds remove the internal dirt. Therefore, righteous deeds are the places of pilgrimage for attaining purity of the Sattva attribute. 158 to 160. Like a river itself coming to the rescue of a drowning person, it is the actions which liberate a seeker from the binding. There is a trick in doing actions which, though basically they are binding, make them work as the main cause of liberation. Now I shall tell you about the trick which makes actions nullify themselves. 162 to 165. Duardan Dabalin Gansh. He who adopts the trick does not swell by pride when the principal yajnas are being performed systematically. 166. Just as a person going on a pilgrimage at the expense of others does not become proud about it. 167. Similarly, he performs the rituals systematically at appropriate times without carrying the ego that he is the doer. He does not harbor any desire in his mind for the fruits of those rituals. Arjuna, one should first give up expectations about the fruits, and then start the action. 170 to 172. He who does actions adopting this trick encounters the self. Therefore, one should do actions giving up the desire for fruits and the I in the body consciousness. This is my message. I repeat again and again that he who is tired of the bindings of life should not disobey this my command. 175 to 177. Tamas abandonment. When one abandons angrily all actions, thinking that actions bind, I call that abandonment a tamas abandonment. It is like cutting one's head because of the headache. 178 to 179. Because of his confusion, the tamas person does not understand the trick of eliminating the affliction of the actions by actions themselves. Therefore he abandons the duties which have come to his lot by his swadharma. You should not even touch such a tamas person. 182 to 183. Rajas abandonment, even while knowing fully what his entitlements and duties are. He is indolent about them, fearing the labor involved. 184. Or else, he begins an action knowing that it is so prescribed, but as soon as it becomes laborious, he abandons it in the middle. He says, "It is by great fortune that I have got an admirable thing like this body. Then why should I make it toil like a sinner? If happiness is to be gained later by doing actions now, then I do not want it. Why not make best of the luxuries I have now?" Abandoning actions because they are laborious is called Raja's abandonment. This is also an abandonment, but it does not give the fruits of one because he forgoes actions due to of his attachment to the body. 189, 193, 195. With the rise of knowledge, all actions vanish along with the ignorance, and that is really an abandonment of actions, which leads to liberation. He who abandons actions out of ignorance does not gain this liberation. Therefore, the Raja's abandonment should not be considered as abandonment. Now, while on the subject, listen also to which abandonment leads to liberation. 196 to 199. Sattvic abandonment he performs systematically, as prescribed, and with love. Whatever actions have come to his lot, naturally as his entitlement, according to his caste. But he does not keep in mind that it is he who is performing them. Also, he abandons the desire of their fruits. 18 to 200 to 201. Actually, ego about actions and desire for fruits are the ones which are called bindings of the actions. One who keeps away from these two while performing prescribed actions does not become unhappy. The most superior tree of abandonment begets the large fruits of liberation. Therefore, this abandonment is known in the world as Sattvic abandonment. 18. 205 to 207. When actions are abandoned after abandoning the fruits, the attributes Raja and Tama get destroyed. Then the pure Sattvic attribute causes the light of self-realization to shine and removes the illusion of the reality of the world. 18 to 210 to 211. The duties which fall to his lot due to the past karmas are, in his view, without blemish, hence he does not bother about happiness or sorrow. He is not excited by the thought that a duty is auspicious or unhappy by taking it to be inauspicious. He does not carry any doubts in his mind about whether a particular duty is auspicious or not. When the feelings of duality that this is the duty and I am the doer of that duty, which separate the duty and the doer, do not enter his mind, then it is an abandonment of Sattvic type. With this manner of abandonment, actions are completely abandoned. If they are abandoned in any other manner, then they bind you more. 18 212 to 217. Turning actions into non-actions, those who are indolent about their duties after they acquire the body are rustic simpletons. 18 218. Is it not foolish to try to abandon actions as long as the impression that I am the body is sustained? One can erase the sandal paste put on the forehead, but how can the writing of one's future on it be erased? One can stop the prescribed rituals after they are begun, but how can the actions of the body be stopped? Because, even if a person is asleep, the action of his breathing continues automatically, and it continues even if he sits doing nothing. The actions which are associated with the body cannot be abandoned while we live, or even after death. It can be abandoned only by one trick, and that is, while doing the actions one should not be in the clutches of the desire of the fruits thereof. If the fruits of the actions are offered to God, then by His benevolence one attains self-realization, and that destroys all actions along with the ignorance. Abandoning actions in this manner is the real abandonment. Therefore he who has abandoned actions in this way is great abandoner. I am again telling you that he alone should be considered as true abandoner in these three worlds who, by abandoning the fruits of actions, has turned them into non-actions. 18 222 to 232. Unfavorable, favorable, and mixed actions. Arjuna. Action is of three types, and they alone have to enjoy or suffer for it, who do not give up the desire for the fruits. After begetting a daughter, her father is released from his ties to her, only when he gives her away in marriage, and the son-in-law who accepts her gets caught in them. 1823 to 224. 34. Whether one does the action out of the ego of one's capability or after abandoning the desire of its fruits, the action alone cannot bind the doer in either case. Only he who desires the fruits gains them. But he who does not accept the fruits, even after doing the action, does not take rebirth anywhere in these three worlds, because it is the result of the fruits of the actions. Deities, humans, and immovable life constitute what is known as the world, and are themselves result of three different types of fruits of actions. The same action is of three types, namely, unfavorable, favorable, and mixed. 18 236 to 240. The fruits of actions of those who are full of lust and transgress in their behavior by doing forbidden evil deeds, and are reborn in low forms, such as worms, insects, earth, stones, etc., because of that are called unfavorable fruits of action. 18, 241 to 242. The fruits of actions of those who respect Swadharma and do meritorious deeds according to one's entitlement, as prescribed in the Vedas, and then attain the bodies of deities, like Indra, etc., are known as favorable fruits of actions. 18 to 43 to 244. When truth and untruth are mixed, a third type of entity is created. Therefore, when an action contains good and bad deeds, its fruits lead to being reborn as a human being. This is what is called mixed fruits of actions. 18, 245 to 247. Nullifying the fruits of actions. These are the three types of fruits of action in this world. Those individuals who get entrapped in the desire of the fruits of actions are compelled to enjoy or suffer them. 18, 248 to 249. People who continue doing actions while they are living may advance materially, but they have to undergo the enjoyment or suffering of those actions after their death. 18, 251. When a grain from an ear of corn falls on ground, it sprouts and gives rise to another ear of corn. The grain from that ear again falls on ground and again sprouts to give another ear. And this cycle goes on. Similarly, while undergoing the fruits of actions, other fruits of actions are created. 18, 253 to 254. The burden of the fruits increases in the order, goal, and means, and those individuals who do not give up the desire of the fruits of action get entangled in the material world. On the other hand, those who nullify the actions even while doing them by giving up the desire of their fruits cause the effects of the fruits to cease. 18, 256 to 258. With the help of pure moral behavior and the nectar of Guru's benevolence, self-realization comes to fruition, and the distress caused by the attitude of duality ends. The three types of fruits of actions which are responsible for the creation of illusion about the reality of this universe vanish, and in that state, the fruits and their enjoyer both dissolve. Those who have been successful in adopting renunciation, sannyas of knowledgeable actions, are liberated from the troubles of birth and death, arising out of the fruits of actions. How can they, whose vision has reached the self due to such renunciation, feel that the deeds are different from the doer? 18, 259 to 262. Once the fruits of actions are abandoned, the material knowledge vanishes, and the seeker attains unity with the Brahman. Then who is going to enjoy the fruits, and who is going to impart the enjoyment? Therefore, in the case of an renunciate, sannyasi, the talk of actions is not at all applicable. 18, 266 to 267. As long as ignorance remains within, and an individual is induced to do good or bad actions by virtue of his capability and his attitude is dualistic, there exists a separateness between the soul and the action. 18, 269. But only the ignorance shows it as such. 18, 275. Causes of actions. There are 5 causes, due to which actions of an individual frequently occur. I shall describe them to you. 18, 277. But perhaps you already know them because Shastras have prominently described them. They are well known through the elucidation of Sankhya philosophy in the realm of the Vedas. These are the basic causes which are essential for success of the actions. But even so, do not relate them to the soul who is the master. 18, 278 to 280. Arjuna, we were talking about how all actions are separate from the soul. 18, 296. It is verily a fact that all actions originate by these causes without the knowledge of the soul, and the 5 causes combine to give a shape to the actions. The very same 5 causes are the purpose of the actions. There, the soul is detached and does not constitute a cause or an incidental motive for it. It neither does actions nor assist in leading the action to completion. Just as sky is different from the day and night, 18304 to 308. Similarly, though good and evil actions do take place in the individual, the soul remains separate from them. 313. First cause body is the first cause of actions, and is the seat of action, because the enjoyer along with the objects to be enjoyed resides in it. There is no other place for an individual to experience the pleasures and sorrows created by Maya, after toiling day and night, using the 10 organs. Hence the term seat of action is used in reference to the body. It is the residence of the 24 principles, and the entanglement of the binding, and the liberation is resolved here. It is this body that supports the 3 states wakefulness. Sleep and dream, therefore it has been named as the body. 18315 to 320. Second cause of actions is the doer. This doer is the reflection of the consciousness. 18321. Forgetting its own nature, under the sektatadstadhyai, I am the body illusion, it appears in the form of the body. The consciousness which has forgotten its true nature of the self is known as an individual. That individual is pledged to live with the body in every way. Due to delusion, he claims that all actions done by the body are actually done by him, and therefore that individual is called the doer. 1824 to 326. Third cause, even though the power of understanding of the intellect is same, it appears in different ways through different organs. This is called manifold distinct functions, prithagvidakaran. It is the third cause of actions. 1830 to 331. Fourth cause, the air has ceaseless power of action which manifests itself differently in different places. When it appears through the tongue, it is known as speech, and when it is expressed through hands, it is called give and take transaction. When it is manifested through feet, it is called walking, and when it goes through urine and feces, it is called cleansing. It is called vital air, pranavayu, when it gives rise to the om sound while moving from navel to the heart. The same vital air, when it moves around in the upper parts, is called udanan. When it comes out through the lower end, it is called apana, while when it occupies the whole body, it is called vyana. When it supplies the alimentary juices, all corners of the body, and gets filled in all the joints, then it is called samana. And the actions like yawning, sneezing, burping, etc., are the manifestations of the minor aspects of vital energy, namely naga, kurma, krikal, etc. See Chapter 6. Thus, the power of action of air, which has different names when it behaves differently, is the fourth cause of action. 18333 to 343. Fifth cause, the intellect alone is the best among all the inner properties of an individual. It excels by the strength of the organs, and the strength of the organs is supported by the group of the presiding deities. The presiding deities like sun, etc., give strength to respective organs like eyes, etc. This group of presiding deities is the fifth cause of actions. Thus I have explained to you the root causes of all actions. Now, the same root causes lead to countless actions. I shall explain to you the purpose due to which this happens. 1848 to 352. Mind, the cause for intent of actions. Arjuna, mind is the cause for intent for actions, and once that intent is born, it finds its expression through speech. In the light of the speech, the path of action becomes clear, and the doer begins the task of doing the action. Because of that, the body itself becomes the purpose of the actions of body. 18357 to 359. The actions of mind, speech, and body become the purpose of mind, speech, and body, because they, mind, speech, and body, are involved in the actions of the body, etc. 18361, 365. Birth of actions when body, speech, and mind join the 5 causes, body, etc. Actions are born. If the action is done as prescribed in the Shastras, then it becomes a just action, and also becomes the cause for just behavior. 18366 to 367. The action which takes place by coming together of the purpose and the cause is a blind action. 18370. But if the same is done consciously with the support of the Shastras, then it become a just action. If the unrestrained action which takes place by the combination of purpose and cause is not done as per the Shastras, then it is as good as not done. Such action is an unjust action, and is the cause of immorality. 18375 to 376. Thus the actions which take place due to the 5 causes also have 5 purposes, and the soul is also involved in them due to its being in contact. 18377. The soul makes the actions discernible without itself taking their form, and without being the doer. 18378. But a person whose intellect is restricted only to the body because of the I am the body illusion is in the dark about the self. He who has considered the body itself as the soul, God and Brahman, is under the impression that it is the soul who is the doer. But really speaking, he is not definite even about that, for he considers that it is the body that is the doer, that he himself, who is the soul, is beyond actions, and is only a witness to them, is something he has never heard of. Therefore it is no wonder that he gauges the immeasurable soul with the measure of the body. 18382 to 385. It must be said that he who does not even permit the name of Shastras or Guru to be uttered in his presence survives on the strength of his foolishness. With the understanding that body itself is the soul, he imprisons himself within the body with the strong walls of the actions. 18390 to 392. He who attributes the actions of Maya to the soul continues accounting for the actions for millions of eons. 18394. Non-attachment to actions. Now I shall tell you how to recognize a person who does not get attached to the actions even after doing them. 18396. While we think of such a liberated person, we ourselves become liberated. 18397. One regains the self while thinking of the saints, therefore one should sing and hear the praise the saints. 18400. Such a person does not get attached to the fruits, good or bad, of his actions. I shall tell you through indirect arguments the characteristics of such a person who has gone beyond the actions. 18401 to 402. Ye, who was experiencing the universe as a dream during the sleep state of ignorance for a long time, woke up to experience the bliss of the Brahman after hearing the great dictum, "You are that with the power of Guru's grace," not just by having him keep his benevolent hands on the head, but having him to pat it. 18403 to 405. Just as after waking up the dream, disappears the feeling of I and mind, does not remain in his mind. 18408. When a person who has reached self-realization sees a visible object, the object and the seer both merge with the self. 18410. When, due to the misunderstanding that action is different from the doer, an imputation made about the soul being the doer vanishes, only the state of the self remains. Would he, who is the ruler of this state of the self, maintain the I am the body feeling? 18412 to 413. How would a person who has the knowable and the knower united within him possess the I am the body ego? 18. Whatever he does becomes his own form of the self. Then which actions should he claim as his? 420. He too, who feels that the ego as the doer is meaningless, continues doing actions as long as he has his body. 422. Even though the I am the body ego has gone, the nature which has created the body gets the actions performed by that body. 18. 428. Because of the five causes, body, etc., the actions occur naturally without any movement on the part of the soul. Because of the influence of the earlier lives, these five causes and purposes induce many actions, whether those actions destroy the entire universe or create a new universe. 18.431 to 433. Whatever may be the case, he remains in the body without the I and the body feeling. 18.435. He is not aware of the happenings of the world, but those who see him materially as a body consider him to be the doer. 18.436 to 437. He who has woken up to the nature of the self and the attitude of the seer has dissolved along with the seen, is not aware of what his organs are doing. 18.441. Bodily movements of a person who is liberated from the birth and death cycles occur, as per the karmas of earlier lives, but because they do not realize it, people call him the doer. By his natural actions, even if the three worlds are destroyed, one should not charge him with it. A man of knowledge does not possess feeling of duality, therefore there is nothing else that he can destroy. 18.47 to 449. Just as the Ganga does not get impure even after another river meets it, similarly his intellect is not affected by the thoughts of sin and merit. 18.450. How can the intellect of a person who does not consider his actions different from himself be affected by them? Therefore, he who himself has become the triad of the action, the doer and the cause, does not get bound by the action done by his body, etc. The individual, considering himself as the doer, works skillfully with the five types of intents, doing innumerable righteous and unrighteous actions by means of the 10 body organs, but the soul has no connection with this activity. You may say that the soul helps in the preparedness for these actions, but that is also not true, because the soul is Brahman and only a witness, Chidrup or form of Brahman. Then how will he permit intent to act? The intent to action which makes people toil does not affect the soul. Therefore one who has attained Brahman cannot at all be trapped by actions. It is the triad that is responsible for depicting improper type of knowledge in the light of ignorance. 18.450 to 460. Improper type of knowledge. The triad of knowledge, knower, and the knowable is the root of the universe. The inclination to act comes from it. Now I shall explain to you forms of each member of this triad. 18.461 to 462. Knowledge is the name given to that which makes an individual experience pleasure and pain, and vanishes while in deep sleep. The individual is the knower. That which is experienced by the individual is what is called knowledge. This knowledge, born of the ignorance of the self, distributes itself in 3 parts as soon as it is created. It keeps the knowable in its front and knower at its back, and connecting them creates interaction between the two. This knowledge, the reach of which is limited up to the boundary of the knowable, and which gives different names to different things, is without doubt ordinary knowledge. Now listen to the characteristics of the knowable. 18.465 to 471. Sound, touch, form, smell, and taste are the 5 ways through which knowable becomes known. Just as the same mango is known by taste, color, smell, and touch, similarly, even though the knowable is one, it is known through 5 organs. Therefore, knowledge is of 5 types. 18.472 to 474. The place where knowledge obtained through organs ends is the knowable or the sense object. Thus I have explained to you the characteristics of knower, knowledge, and the knowable. 18.475 to 477. This knowable becomes the cause of 3 types of actions. 18.477. Though the knowable is of 5 types by virtue of the 5 senses is sound, touch, form, smell, and taste, It is only of one type, either liked or disliked. When the knower knows even a little about a knowable object, he tends to either accept it or reject it. 18. 478 to 480. This knower rushes to the sense objects like a crane rushing to catch a fish as soon it sees it. 18. 480, 484. Therefore, Arjuna, all actions originate from the knowledge, the knowable, and the knower. 18. 485. If the knower likes the knowable sense object, then he cannot tolerate a moment's delay in enjoying it. But if he dislikes it, then every moment of delay in abandoning it seems to him like eons. 18. 486 to 487. Then he does actions in order to accept or reject it. 18. 489. Thus the knower becomes the doer of actions. 18. 491. He who, with the desire of sense pleasures, makes the organs work becomes the doer, and then knowledge becomes the cause, or in other words, the means, and consequently, the knowable becomes the action. In this manner, the basic nature of the knowledge changes. 18. 493 to 495. By giving impetus to the organ's knower is caught in the ego of being the doer. Listen to the characteristics of the doer under these conditions. 18. 497. Intellect, mind, mindfulness, and ego are the four internal organs, and skin, ears, eyes, tongue, and nose are the five external sense organs. The doer takes a measure of the possible actions with the help of inner organs, and if he thinks that the action is going to give him pleasure, then he makes the eyes, etc. The 10 external organs, 5 organs of sense and 5 of action, work until he gets the outcome. Work until he gets the outcome. On the other hand, if he thinks that the action would result in pain or unhappiness, then he inspires the 10 organs to abandon it. Like a king making people toil day and night for unpaid revenue, he makes the organs work day and night until the pain or unhappiness is completely removed. When the knower thus engages the organs to accept or abandon the action, he is called the doer. 18. 498 to 505. We call the organs as means of action because the doer engages them to do actions. That which encompasses the acts done using these means is what is meant by action in this chapter. 18. 506 to 507. Just as the intellect of a goldsmith encompasses the ornament similarly, without doubt, that which encompasses the acts of the doer is the action. 18. 508, 510. Thus I have told you about the characteristics of action, doer, and the means of action. Here, the knower, knowledge, and knowable are the provokers of actions, while the doer, the means, and the deed are the aggregation of actions. 18. 511 to 512. The triad of the doer, means, and the act of doing are the lifeline of action. Therefore, wherever there is an ego, I am the doer of this deed. The soul keeps away from such actions. Therefore, there is no need to tell you separately that soul is different from actions. You already know it. 18. 514 to 516. Knowledge, action, and the doer, the knowledge, action, and the doer, which I explained to you, become of 3 kinds due to the 3 attributes, sattva, raja, and tama. You should not trust the triad of knowledge, the action, and the doer because 2 of the attributes lead to binding, and the sattva attribute alone is capable of leading to liberation. I shall explain to you the features of sattva attribute which are clearly explained in the Sankhya doctrine. That Sankhya doctrine is an ocean of thoughts. It is the moon, which makes the lotus of self-realization bloom, and the best among the knowledge-giving doctrines. It is the sun which distinguishes between Prakriti and Purusha, nature and the Supreme Self, who are enmeshed together like the day and the night. This doctrine gouges the immeasurable ignorance by means of 24 principles, and leads you to the experience of the bliss of the supreme principle. Arjuna, the features of the three attributes described by the Sankhya doctrine is as follows. 18,517 to 523. These three attributes are so great that they have turned all things in the world into three types by their power, and consequently everything from Brahmadeo to a tiny insect have been transformed to the three types of attributes. But first I shall tell you about the principle by which this entire universe has come into the clutches of these three attributes. In order to see anything clearly, the eyesight has to be clear first. Similarly, if the knowledge is pure, then it is possible to understand the real nature of things. Therefore, I shall tell you about sattvic knowledge. 18,524 to 528. Sattvic knowledge, Arjuna, the knowledge into which the knowable merges together with the knower, is sattvic knowledge. 18,529. This knowledge sees no difference between individuals from Shiva to a blade of grass. 18,531. When the knowable is seen by the light of this knowledge, no difference is perceptible between the knower, knowledge, and the knowable. 18,533. Knowledge which does not notice visible things is the sattvic knowledge. Just as an observer sees his own reflection in a mirror, similarly knower sees knowable as knowledge, which is also himself. His sattvic knowledge is the temple of liberation. Now listen to the characteristics of Rajas knowledge. 18,535 to 537. Rajas knowledge, that which goes by presupposing differences among creatures, is Rajas knowledge. That knowledge has splintered itself into pieces by assuming diversity among creatures and tricked the knower. That knowledge spreads the paraphernalia of Maya around the premises of self-realization and shows the individual the play of the three states of wakefulness, dream, and sleep. 18,538 to 541. Because of the differences in the name and form, this knowledge is distanced from the non-duality. 18,545. The feeling of oneness has vanished from the knowledge by the understanding that there are differences among creatures. The knowledge which considers things as different from each other in various ways and distinguishes them as big and small is the Rajas knowledge. 18,547 to 548. Tamas knowledge. Now I shall tell you about the characteristics of tamas knowledge. That which is bare and not covered by the fabric of the rules of the Shastras is the tamas knowledge. Therefore Shrutis, Vedas, turn their back to it. The Shastras which follow the Vedas have also charged that this knowledge as despicable and relegated it to the realms of the Mlenka, non-Hindu, religion. Such knowledge does not get hindered by any rules in corporal relations, nor does it find any object objectionable. 18,549 to 552. In the heat of enjoyment of sense pleasures, it does not think about avoiding objectionable actions and or of doing those prescribed by the Shastras. It rushes to enjoy whatever sense pleasures it comes across, without bothering about what should be eaten or avoided, what is proper or improper. It thinks that what it likes is only sacred. It only knows that women are for sexual enjoyment only, and is eager to keep relation with them. It keeps friendship only with those whose contact is profitable to its selfish motives, and not with those who are its relatives. Tamas knowledge thinks that the whole world is meant for their benefit. It feels that the whole world is something that should be enjoyed. It's that all actions are for filling the belly. He is ignorant about what actions should be done and what should be avoided. His intellect does not go beyond the thinking that body is the soul, and God is a stone idol. He thinks that after death, the soul is destroyed, along with actions, and no one is left to experience the fruits of action. 18,557 to 568. If God is a witness to one's actions and makes him experience the fruits thereof, then one can simply sell away the idol of God and spend the money. If one says that the village, local deities control them, then why do the hills over the rest of the country keep quiet? And if at all the Tamas knowledge believes in God, then it considers only the stone idol as God, and that the body itself as soul. It thinks that the concept of sin and merit is false, and one should enjoy the sense pleasures voraciously. They are certain that what is seen and what pleases the sense organs is the only reality. And this understanding of theirs grows day by day. 569 to 573. The Tamas knowledge is meaningless and useless like the life of a eunuch. We call it as knowledge in the same way as we call a undrinkable liquid as drink. Actually, instead of knowledge, it should be considered as Tama attribute itself. 576 to 581. Thus I have told you about the three kinds of knowledge, along with their characteristics. Now, the doer does actions in the light of these three kinds of knowledge. The same action becomes of three kinds due to these different kinds of knowledge. Now listen first to the characteristics of sattvic actions. 582 to 585. Sattvic actions, just as a faithful wife embraces her husband by herself, similarly that action which comes to one's lot, by one's entitlement, the action which gives decorum to the entitlement, when regularly performed, is the proper routine action. If it is joined by incidental action, then the combination is good like fragrance dabbed on a gold ornament. Action should be performed with all one's mind and heart, making an offering of it to God without keeping desire for fruits thereof, or without feeling happy if the action is successful, or sorry if it is not. Actions done in this skillful way are may be called sattvic actions. 586 to 594. Rajas actions. Now I shall tell you about Rajas actions. A person doing Rajas actions does not speak properly with his parents, but like a fool shows respect to everybody else in the world. 595. He does not get up from his seat to perform the essential routine and incidental actions, but when it comes to actions of pleasure and lust, he does not spare any efforts. 597 to 598. Such a Rajas doer labors a lot, keeping in view the future fruits of his efforts, but feels that he has not labored enough. With desire of fruits in mind, he does many actions as prescribed and systematically, and after he has done them announces to the world about them, distributing tokens of gift to establish that he is religious. Then his mind is filled with so much ego that he stops respecting his parents. Whatever actions he does with ego and desire of fruits in mind, he does without sparing any efforts. 601 to 606. Such people like labors. They do these labors with the attraction of the pleasures in heaven. The action which is thus laborious and done with desire of fruits is Rajas action. 608 to 610. Tamas actions. Now listen to the characteristics of tamas action. That which is the dark dungeon of slander, and which is the successful culmination of the birth of prohibited actions and sin, is tamas action. 611. Just as drawing a line on water does not result in anything, similarly the fruits of such action cannot be seen, and the action is wasted. 612. 615. The action done by toiling the valuable body and spending wealth destroys the happiness of the world. 616. Tamas action not only destroys everything belonging to the doer, and injuring his body, but it injures others as well. 619. The tamas doer does actions without thinking about his own capability. While doing that action, due to indiscretion and ego, he sets upon for the work without bothering about his own capability, propriety of the occasion, and whether he will gain anything by it. 621 to 623. He proceeds without thinking of the past and future, without distinguishing between right and wrong ways, and does not distinguish between proper and improper, or whether a particular thing belongs to himself or to others. Thus, I have explained to you how action has become of three types due to the differences in the three attributes. 18. 625 to 627. Due to the three types of actions, the doer also becomes of three types. Now I shall describe to you a sattvic doer first. 18,628 to 630. Sattvic doer. A sattvic doer performs his routine and incidental acts, but they should not be called fruitless. These acts never go waste because, Arjuna, how can fruit itself beget fruits? He does many acts with respect but does not keep ego of being the doer. In order to do acts worthy of offering to God, he selects proper time and place and decides with the help of the Shastras which acts should be done. Combining the organs and the inclination, he binds himself with a set of rules without letting his mind waver towards the fruits. He takes care throughout his life to develop excellent courage in order to succeed in the control of the organs. And while doing his duties, driven only by the love for self-realization, he does not bother about physical happiness. While doing these duties, he loses sleep, does not feel hungry, and his body is away from sense pleasures. His enthusiasm for doing his duties increases. Because of the intrinsic liking for the self, he treats even his life as insignificant. Will he who is in love with his soul feel sorry if his body has to labor? As the desire for sense pleasures vanish and physical tendencies wane, his joy in performing duties doubles. Even if performance of his duties is interrupted, he does not feel sorry for it, neither does he feel he has won a victory if he has finished his duty successfully. He in whom such qualities are found should really be called a sattvic doer. 18. 632 to 648. Rajas doer. Now the sign by which a Rajas doer may be recognized is that he is full of worldly desires. 18. 649. He is the meeting place for all the desires and failings in the world. He starts with acts which give fruits easily, and he will not even leave a paisa from whatever profits he can get from it, and for this he will sacrifice even his life. He is ready to swallow other people's property while guarding his own. 18. 651 to 654. He uses all his faculties to give trouble to others, and without bothering about their welfare, he works for his own gains. He does not let thoughts of distaste arise in his mind for any type of work, even if he has no ability to complete it. He is poor in keeping sanctity. If he succeeds in any task, he mocks at the world in the surge of happiness, and if he is unsuccessful, then stricken with grief, he denounces it. A person who does actions thus is a Rajas doer. 18,655 to 661. Tamas doer. After this, I shall now tell about the tamas doer, who is like a repository of evil deeds. 18. 662. Just as strong poison does not know its own power of destruction, he is inclined to do evil deeds, which can destroy others, and while doing it, he is not aware of what he is doing. There is no relation between his acts and his intentions. This tamas doer surpasses a madman. He lives by enjoying the pleasures of the organs. His behavior is unrestrained, and being controlled by nature, he does not know what is proper or improper. He swells by the satisfaction of his own evil acts, and under the influence of pride he does not bow, even before God. He is always deceitful about enjoying the sense pleasures. His behavior is stealthy, and his looks are like a prostitute taking away other man's possessions. In other words, his whole body is made up of falsehoods, and his life is like a gambler's den. His life should be considered as home of a selfish robber. Therefore, nobody should get involved in him. He gets enraged when he sees good deeds of others. 18. 664 to 675. The good deeds of others turn into bad deeds by his involvement. He considers good qualities of others as bad qualities, and he turns nectar into poison. When some good deed that can make the worldly life bear good fruits, and give a better position in the afterworld comes to his lot, it is most certain that he would be sleeping at that time. But when it comes to doing evil deeds, the sleep goes away immediately. 677 to 681. When it is the time to do beneficial deeds, he feels lethargic, and contrarily, when evil deeds are to be done, the lethargy is under his control. He burns with jealousy when he sees the advancement of others. He remains jealous throughout his life, and he starts labors of fulfillment of desires, which will last him for eons. He does worry about matters beyond this world, but is not able to gain even a blade of grass. Such a person, who is definitely a pile of sin, may be considered as a tamas doer. Thus I have explained to you 3 kinds of acts, doer, and knowledge. 683 to 689. 3 types of intellect. Now the intellect which, covered by delusion and embellished by doubt, moves in the realm of improper knowledge, and is the mirror through which an individual sees himself, is also of 3 types. Arjuna, is there anything in this world which has not been turned into 3 types by the 3 attributes? What is there in this visible world which is not of 3 types? Therefore, the intellect has also become of 3 types, due to the 3 attributes. Fortitude is also similarly divided. Out of these 2, I shall explain to you about the 3 divisions of intellect first. 690 to 695. Superior, medium, and inferior ways. There are 3 types of ways: superior, medium, and inferior, for every creature in this world to follow. These 3 ways are respectively known as not doing prescribed acts, doing fruit-motivated acts, and doing forbidden acts. Because of these, the creature develops fear for this world. Superior way, therefore, doing the prescribed routine acts according to one's right, is the superior way. The same should be practiced keeping in view the attainment of self-realization. Thus practiced, the doing of the prescribed routine acts frees one from the fear of this world and facilitates liberation. A wise person who acts in this manner becomes free from the fear of this world, and by this behavior, set himself on the path of liberation. The intellect that decides on the behavior of the individual, by keeping trust in the prescribed routine deeds, guarantees liberation. Therefore, why one should not base one's renunciation on the foundation of the inclination to act and engage oneself in actions. 696 to 704. Sattvic intellect doing the prescribed routine deeds definitely leads to liberation. Sattvic intellect is that which has the inclination towards doing the prescribed routine deeds. It knows which deeds are not proper. It does not turn towards fruit-motivated deeds that create fear of the world, and towards forbidden deeds, which should not be done, and entangle one in birth-death cycles. 10. The sattvic intellect is definitely afraid when it notices a forbidden action. The action that binds one to birth and death cycles, and fearing it, keeps away from it. The intellect that understands which deed is good and which is evil, after carefully considering actions and non-actions, and measuring them with the scale of inclination to work and renunciation, is the sattvic intellect. 713 to 717. Rajas intellect, the intellect that does deeds without understanding which is a good deed conforming with the code of Dharma, and which is an evil deed against Dharma. 720. Missing the latter only by good luck, the intellect that considers both kinds of deeds as alike, the intellect that does not know how to choose between proper and improper deeds, is Rab. 722 to 723. 123. Tamas intellect, the intellect that considers all religious deeds as sinful and real things as false, interprets the meaning of the Shastras in reverse manner, and considers good qualities as bad, and which considers matters agreeable to the Shrutis Vedas as perverse, should be called tamas intellect. How can such intellect, which is like a dark night, be proper for religious deeds. 18726 to 729. Dotted. 3 types of fortitude. Thus I have explained to you the 3 divisions of intellect. Now, when the intellect decides to perform a deed, then the fortitude supports it, and is also of 3 types. I shall tell you about the 3 types of fortitude also. 730 to 732. Sattvic fortitude. When the sattvic fortitude is created, the activities of the mind, the life force, and the organs stop. Then the association of the 10 organs with the sense objects breaks, and they enter the womb of the mind, i.e., instead of turning towards sense objects, they turn inwards towards the mind. Since both the upper and the lower pathways of the life force are blocked, it brings together its 9 aspects and goes to the Sushumna Nadi. Since mind is freed of will and doubt, it is exposed, and the intellect rests quietly in its rear. Thus, the peerless fortitude which, by stopping the activities of the mind, life force, and the organs, imprisons them to the confines of meditation, and keeps them so without getting lured by them until they are handed over to our Emperor, the Supreme Soul, is the sattvic fortitude. 737 to 744. Taram Shayab Tastayumaya Wadan. Kausagi Kuran Kernardwal, Kawai. Rajas fortitude. The individual who, by occupying the body, gets engrossed in the worldly affairs, and those of heaven, by means of righteous living. Earning and family life attains his ambitions on the strength of the Raja's fortitude. That fortitude with which he puts in efforts, making certain that they would give 4 times as many gains, is called Raja's fortitude. 745 to 748. Tamas fortitude. Now I shall tell you the characteristics of tamas fortitude. This fortitude is made up of all mean qualities. Why should it be called a quality when it is inferior and mean? The word has been used in the case of tama, attribute without thinking. It shelters lethargy, and, just as unhappiness does not leave the support of sin, similarly sleep never leaves him. Since he loves his body and wealth, fear does not leave him. Just as sin of an ungrateful person is not mitigated, similarly, because of his friendship with everything and everybody, grief resides in him perpetually. Because he has tied himself to dissatisfaction, sorrow makes friendship with him. Discontent does not leave him until death. And because of the attraction for youth, wealth, and lust grow within him, arrogance also resides in him. He is always afflicted with fear, the enemy of the whole world. Just as death does not forget the body, similarly in a tamas individual, arrogance is continual. The fortitude that has clutched the 5 failings, sleep, etc., should be considered as tamas fortitude. 749 to 762. Intellect decides about the 3 kinds of actions and the 3 kinds of fortitude. Take the actions to completion. Even if one can see the path clearly after sunrise, individual has to walk on the path by his own feet. But for that walking also fortitude, i.e., the determination of mind, is necessary. Thus I have told you about 3 types of fortitude, and the 3 types of actions which are completed due to it. The fruit one gets from the action is called happiness. That is also of 3 types according to the nature of the action. I shall explain to you how this happiness in the form of fruit becomes of 3 types due to the 3 attributes. 763 to 768. Taramand. 3 types of happiness. When a little happiness is gained, then proceeding in the same manner it grows until the sorrow for the state of being in a body vanishes. That happiness is the bliss of the self. That bliss of the self also has become of 3 types. I shall tell you the characteristics of each of them. 776 to 777. Sattvic bliss. In order to achieve that bliss of the self, one has to suffer in the beginning itself the pains of observing the self-restraints, rules, etc. When the strong detachment which swallows all the likes and dislikes develops, it uproots the binding, liking, to the heaven and the world. The weakness of intellect, etc., gets severely mutilated while listening to strict discretion and while observing strict austerities. Surge of the vital airs, prana and apana, are required to be swallowed through the sushumna nadi, and all these efforts are required to be made in the beginning itself. 18. 781 to 784. The organs suffer and feel as if it is the end of the eon, while leaving the sense objects but with detachment. These pains are to be faced with courage. Thus, by suffering the pains in the beginning itself, they achieve the highest kind of bliss. 18. 787 to 788. After the detachment gets matured by the knowledge of the self, all sorrows originating in ignorance, including the detachment, vanish. Intellect becomes one with the soul, and the mind of non-duality automatically opens up for it. In this way, the bliss which is rooted in detachment and ends in the peace of the self-realization may be called sattvic bliss. 18,791 to 793, Tara 93. Rajas happiness. When the sense objects and organs come in contact, the Raja's bliss overflows. 18,794. Tara. This happiness that nurtures the individuals is like the company of a confidence trickster or the behavior of a prostitute, which appear to be pleasant in the beginning, but are harmful in the end. It exhausts the stock of happiness fast, destroys life, and drains the wealth of merit. All sense pleasures that were enjoyed earlier look like a dream, and what only remains is to suffer sorrow. Thus in this life, this happiness results in calamities, and in the afterlife also, it gives fruits like poison. Those who pamper their sense organs by sacrificing the righteous ways of living and of celebrating the pleasure orgies strengthen the sins which lead them to hell. The worldly pleasures thus lead to ruin in the afterworld. Worldly happiness, which is sweet in the beginning but leads to a bitter end, is Raja's happiness. Do not even let it touch you. 18. 797 to 805. Tamas happiness, the pleasure that is obtained from drinking the undrinkable, eating the uneatable, or in the company of a woman of loose morals, or by ruining others, snatching other people's wealth, or by listening to the praise by others. The pleasure that proliferates by others, the pleasure that proliferates by lethargy or sleep, and in the beginning and end of which one misses the road to progress, may be considered as tamas happiness. I am not going into its details because it is impossible. Thus I have clarified how, by the divisions of the action, the resulting happiness has also become of three types. 18. 806 to 810. No escape from attributes. There is nothing in this world apart from the doer, deed, and the fruit thereof. The three attributes are woven in this triad. Therefore keep in mind that there is no object on this earth or in heaven which is not bound by the attributes of nature. 18. 811 to 813. No creature has escaped from the arrangement of the attributes in this world. Therefore, all objects in this world are made up of these three attributes. It is these attributes which have turned one God into three, Brahma, Vishnu, and Mahesh. It is because of these three attributes that the three worlds, heaven, earth, and nether, were created, and the four castes and their duties have become different. 18. 815 to 817. Duties of four castes. The four castes at the top of the four caste system are the Brahmins. The next two, Kshatriyas, and the Vaishyas, are of the same level as the Brahmins because they are entitled to perform Vedic rites. The fourth caste, i.e. the Shudras, does not have the right to the Vedas, therefore its sustenance is dependent upon the first three castes. Since it comes in close contact with the three castes, i.e. Brahmin, etc., it has been counted as a fourth caste. Because of their contacts with the twice-born, Shrudis included Shudras also in the caste system. See notes. Thus the caste system divides people into four types. I shall tell you what the duties of the four castes are and the nature of the duties. By the attributes of these duties, these 4 castes escape from the clutches of the birth and death cycle and attain God. These duties are assigned to the 4 castes according to the 3 attributes of nature. 818 to 825. Attributes and castes in this system. The Sattva attribute has entered equally in Brahmins and Kshatriyas. The Raja attribute mixed with the Sattva attribute has entered the Vaishyas, while the Tama attribute mixed with the Raja attribute has entered the Shudras. Thus the mankind, which is basically one, has been divided into 4 types by the 3 attributes. Shastras clarify the duties which are separated due to the attributes. Now listen to which are the duties proper for each caste. 800 to 832. The 9 qualities of a Brahmin controlling the bodily tendencies and desires. The intellect meets the self in solitude like a wife, embracing her husband in private. This peaceful nature of the intellect is called shama or serenity, and all actions, fit for Brahmins, start from it. That which restrains the external organs by showing them the fear of the scriptural rules, and does not let them turn towards unrighteousness, is called dhamma, or restraint, and is a helpmate to shama. It is the 2nd quality of the action. Ever thinking about God is called tapas, or austerity, and is the 3rd quality of the action. This action has 2 types of purity, or shauchya, the internal purity of the mind with pure emotions, and the external purity of the body with good deeds. This is the 4th quality of this type of action. To tolerate all pains like the earth does is called kshama, or forbearance, which is the 5th quality, and is sweet like the panchama tone, equivalent to G scale of the Western music. To behave in a straightforward manner with an individual who is against you is the 6th quality called arjava, or uprightness. Understanding that behaving as prescribed in the scriptures leads to God realization is knowledge, and is the 7th quality of action. Steadfast unification of the intellect with the Supreme Person by means of the power of knowledge of the Shastras, or by meditation after the mind is purified, is called wisdom, vidyan, and is the 8th quality. And accepting what is prescribed by the Shastras is the same as belief in God, astikya, is the 9th quality of action, and the action, which has this quality, is the true action. Thus the action in which these 9 qualities, i.e. serenity, etc., are faultlessly present is the natural duty of a Brahmin. 845 to 851. This string of 9 jewels of the 9 qualities is an ornament of a Brahmin, and he is never without it. 854. 7 qualities of a Kshatriya. Now I shall tell you what is the proper action for a Kshatriya. 855. Just as a lion does not seek anybody's company while going hunting, similarly, he is strong and exhibits inborn bravery without external support. This bravery is the first and best of the qualities of a Kshatriya. 856 to 857. To astonish the world by one's strength and qualities and not getting disturbed under any circumstances is the 2nd notable quality exhibited by Kshatriyas known as martial luster. Courage or fortitude is his 3rd quality by means of which his mind and intellect do not experience fear even if heavens come down. 859 to 861. Overcoming the emotional effects, joy, sorrow, fear, etc., resulting from many calamities, and guiding the intellect to pass through them and get favorable results, is the 4th quality of a Kshatriya called alertness. Extreme fighting spirit is his 5th quality. He faces the enemy and avoids retreat from the enemy. This 5th quality is superior among all the qualities, just as devotion is among the 4 worldly obligations of a person. 863 to 867. Giving limitlessly in charity as per people's wishes and needs is the 6th quality of a Kshatriya called generosity. 869 to 870. To protect and foster the subjects with love, and to receive their services is the sense of godly duty, or Ishwar Bhava. King is considered as representative of God. The storehouse of all power is this sense of being God's representative, which should be reflected in the behavior of a Kshatriya, and is the seventh quality which is the king among the qualities. A Kshatriya is adorned by these 7 qualities. 18. 871 to 873. The action which becomes sacrosanct by these 7 qualities is the natural action of a Kshatriya. 18. 878. Duties of a Vaishya. Now I shall tell you about actions which are proper for a Vaishya. 18. 879. To make a lot of profit from farm, seeds and plows, in short, to live by farming, maintaining cattle, or buying goods cheaply and selling them at higher price, are the natural actions of a Vaishya. 1880 to 882. Duty of a Shudra. The 3 caste Vaishya, Kshatriya and Brahmin are termed as Dvija, or twice born. To serve them is only the true prescribed duty of a Shudra. There is no duty for Shudras other than serving the twice born. Thus I have told you about the actions proper for the 4 castes. 18. 883 to 884. Duties to be done as per caste entitlement, just as joining the river is proper for rainwater, and joining the ocean proper for the river. Similarly, it is proper for a person to do whatever actions fall to his lot, as per the rules of the 4 caste system. One should resolve firmly to do the natural actions as prescribed in the Shastras. One's duties and entitlement as per one's caste should be understood from the Shastras. 18. 886, 889, 891. A person who does actions in this manner, but laying stress on doing them gladly with body and mind, without lethargy and without desire for fruits of the actions, does them exactly as prescribed by the Shastras, and reaches the gates on this side of liberation, i.e. detachment, because he does not allow himself to be tainted either by not doing the prescribed deeds, or by doing the prohibited ones. He is therefore not affected by the ills of the worldly affairs. He considers actions with desire like shackles of sandalwood, and does not even look at them. And because he gives up the fruits of the other actions, namely the routine actions, and thus nullifies them, he reaches the boundary of liberation. In this way, he avoids the traps of sin and merit in this world, and stands at the gates of liberation in the form of detachment. 18. 893. 894. 896, 900. Importance of detachment. The detachment which is the limit of all fortunes, and giver of knowledge for attaining liberation. And the end point of the labors of the path of action is the guarantee for liberation, and is the fruit of the tree of merit. The bee that is the seeker sits on the flower of detachment. That detachment is the dawn signifying that the sun of self-realization is about to rise. 18. 901 to 903. Thus, by observing the rules of prescribed actions, he becomes entitled to liberation. Arjuna. Performing this prescribed action is my one and only call, and is the highest kind of service to me, who is the soul of everything. 18. 905 to 906. Prescribed duties. Puts burden on God. The faithful wife exchanges pleasures with her husband in all sorts of ways, and the very same as her tapas, or a child has no means of life support, except of its mother. Therefore its righteous action is to serve her. 18. 907 to 908. One should not abandon one's prescribed duties. When the prescribed duties are performed, it puts an obligation on God. It is His desire that everybody should do appropriate duties prescribed for him. Therefore, when these duties are done, one doubtlessly attains God. 18. 910 to 911. Not to default on behaving as desired by Him is the highest service to Him. Doing anything other than this, in purely business, Therefore, when prescribed duty is performed, it does not amount to action. It amounts to obeying the commands of God, from whom the 5 principles came into existence. That God wraps up the rags of ignorance to make puppet dolls of individuals and makes them play with the strings made of ego with the strands of 3 attributes. God has pervaded the universe from inside as well as outside like the light from a lamp. And when he is worshipped with the flowers of good deeds, he is pleased. Therefore, the soul who is pleased with the worship gives him the prasad, grace, of detachment. In that state of detachment, the attention is concentrated on God, and he dislikes the entire world like a vomit, and all the pleasures in the world also appear to him like sorrows. Even before achieving the final success, he achieves oneness with God by his total attention to him, and becomes worthy of self-realization. Therefore, he who observes austerities for achieving liberation should practice own dharma with deep faith. 18,913 to 922. Follow own dharma, Arjuna. Though own dharma, Swatarama, is difficult to observe, one should keep in mind the fruits one would gain from it. 18,923. If we start disliking our own dharma because it is difficult, then shall we not miss the bliss of liberation? 18,926. Even if our mother is a hunchback, her love on which we survive is not hunchback. 18,927. Even if ghee has better qualities than water, can fish live in ghee? What is poison to the world is like nectar to the organisms living in it. Therefore, even though it is difficult to observe, everyone should do only what is prescribed for him, and that which will liberate him from the worldly troubles. To adopt other people's behavior because it appears good is like walking on your head instead of by your feet. Therefore, Arjuna, is it not necessary to make a rule that one should practice one's own dharma and avoid others? As long as there is no self-realization, actions are going to be there, and doing any action will always be difficult in the beginning. 18,929 to 935. When every action has its difficulties, then why should we blame our own dharma for them? 18,936. If doing even those actions which we like involves labors, then how can we say that actions prescribed by Shastras are difficult? 18,945. Is there any fruit other than sorrow when one accumulates sins by laboring one's organs and spending time of our life? Therefore, one should practice only one's own natural dharma because it will mitigate your labors and fetch you liberation, the highest among the 4 obligations of man: dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. See notes under chapter 12. 18,948 to 949. Then, God, pleased by the great worship of observation of one's own dharma, destroys the tama and raja, attributes from the mind, and directs one's eagerness towards sattva, attribute resulting into the conviction that this earth and heaven are like poison. The person then achieves the detachment of the type implied by the word sansiddha, used earlier in the Gita Shloka No. 45, to explain the meaning of detachment. I shall now tell about how he becomes a seeker once this state of detachment is mastered, and what he gains by it. 18,952 to 955. Orn. Becoming a seeker, such a person is not caught in the web of worldly things like the body, etc. His love for the world becomes dull. He does not consider his sons, wealth, and family as his, even if they go by his wishes. Then his intellect, scalded by the sense pleasures, reverses into seclusion, become introspect. His conscience does not beak the vow of not turning towards external objects. Then that seeker grips his mind in the grip of oneness with God, and turns its interested towards soul. At that time his desire for the worldly and beyond the world subjects vanishes. Therefore, if mind is controlled, then desire also vanishes. Thus the illusions about the realness of the world vanish, and he comes to the state of true knowledge of the self. His past karmas are nullified by going through the process of enjoying or suffering for them. And new karma is not created, because the ego of being the doer of the actions has already vanished. This state is called karma samya, dasha, or the state of null karmas. When this state of null karmas is attained, he meets his guru automatically. 956 to 966. Once he meets his guru, his actions and his responsibility as doer stops. 968. The ignorance of the seeker, then, is destroyed by the blessings of the true guru. 970. State of actionlessness. Once the ignorance gets destroyed, then the triad of actions, the doer, and the act of doing vanishes, and karma is abandoned automatically. Thus, when the visible world is wiped away by destroying the ignorance which is the root cause of all actions, then the seeker realizes that what he was endeavoring to know is he himself. 971 to 973. When ignorance goes, it takes with it the knowledge also, and what remains is the actionless consciousness. Therefore, that state of pure knowledge is called non-doing, or actionlessness. He then remains in the state of his original form. The state of complete actionlessness is the siddhi of actionlessness, and is naturally the most superior among the siddhis. 977 to 980. There is nothing more to be gained beyond the state of actionlessness. 983. This state is attained by the blessings of a true guru. 984. Who can say that a person whose inclination has become steady in the self by the destruction of duality after listening, due to his good fortune, to the advice of his true guru has any action remaining to be done? Without doubt, such a person has nothing left to be done. 987 to 990. But it is not everybody that can reach that state. What a person who has not yet been able to reach the state of self-realization should do is explained in the following. 991. Getting ready to meet his guru, that seeker should first burn the raja and tama attributes along with desire and prohibited actions in the fire of prescribed actions, using the fuel of actions, i.e. burn prohibited actions as well as the two attributes. Also, he should see that the desire about children, wealth, and heaven should be under his complete control. The organs which were exposed to various sense pleasures should be controlled, pratyahar or control of organs, and acting as prescribed by the own dharma and making the offering of the fruits to God, attain a steady state of detachment. Means should be obtained by which knowledge would grow and self-realization attained. If one meets his true guru after being so prepared, and he gives advice on self-realization without reservations, 991 to 997, then in time he will receive the fruits. 999. When one achieves detachment and also meets true guru and discrimination takes root in the mind, then the mind, using that discrimination, decides that Brahman alone is real and all other worldly things are an illusion. But the state of oneness with the all-pervading and the supreme Brahman, where the path to liberation ends, in which the knowledge by which the three states of wakefulness, dream, and sleep dissolves, where the oneness of unification vanishes, and not even a trace of bliss of the self remains, but which still remains as a remainder, even when nothing remains, is achieved only step by step in due time. 1001 to 1006. The lamp of thoughts is lighted by the oil of detachment, and he gets the treasure of the self. The essence of the steps by which a seeker, who has become permanently worthy of enjoying this treasure of the self, achieves self-realization is the what I shall tell you now. 10:8 to 10:10. Notes. Twice born, Dviya, 1880 and 25. Dviya means twice born. Before the age of 7, members of the three castes, Brahman, Kshatriya, and Vaishya, undergo a ceremony called Mujibandhan, or thread ceremony, after which they are formally entitled to study and to perform Vedic rites. This is considered as being reborn as a person of that caste. Thus he is once born as a person in the world, and second time he is born in the caste. Copyright 26. Vishwatmak Jangli, Maharaj. Ashram Trust, Gorkho. All rights reserved. Revised.